This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. How is everybody doing out there? I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a good week. As always, wouldn't it be weird if one week I just said, I hope you had a terrible week? You know, just one time, just to mess with you, just to make sure you guys are listening out there. But nah, still too mean. Can't do it. For real, though, I hope you're doing great. Whether you're at the gym, in the car, at home, avoiding your responsibilities like a good adult always should, happy to be here with you. And man, my guest is the one, the only, the legend, one of the few people who truly deserves that title. It's Paul Oakenfold on the show. If you had told the 16-year-old me that a little down the road, he'd be trading stories, hanging out with Paul Oakenfold, man, I don't even know what I would have done. There was just no concept. And I have to say, I've talked to a lot of different people on this show. I've talked to big artists, I've talked to small artists, friends, and total strangers. This was the first time where I really felt like I was talking to a rock star. Just the whole way he carried himself. You know what? I'm going to tell you all about it in a second. Before I do, I want to take care of a little business real quick. First of all, I've had a lot of people asking me about my SiriusXM radio show that I do every week. It's called Back to Back Radio. It's on at 9 p.m. Pacific time, channel 52 on SiriusXM. But for everybody out there who doesn't have Sirius, they've been asking me how to hear those mixes. And I promise you, we're working on a way to get all of those up. I think the mixes are really dope. I think they're worth your time. So when those are up and ready, I'll let you guys know. Don't worry, I'm working on it. In the meantime, don't forget to follow the Back to Bangers Spotify playlist. That's the list that I update every single week with all the music from this podcast. The music from myself, my guests, everything new, plus everything that we talk about in these conversations. People really seem to dig it. I actually really enjoy making it every week for you. And it's just a good time. It's free. All you got to do is follow the link in the description of this episode and you will get there. On that same note, if you're a new listener, if you're a first timer here at Back to Back, welcome. Happy to have you. Do not forget to subscribe to this show because I guarantee you, if you enjoyed today's episode, there are a lot of other episodes in the back catalog that you might want to check out. Recently, I was thinking about AC Slater's episode. How fun was that? An old friend. We got to reconnect after a long time. The stories he had, I just love that guy. But no matter what style, what sound, what artist you're into, I promise you, I probably talked to somebody you're into. And as always, if you like what I'm doing here, if you're enjoying this show, the best way you can support me is to share this with your friends. We don't ask for money here. We don't really do advertising. So Back to Back is a community show. You help it grow more than anything else. Word of mouth and the support of our listeners is really what keeps me going. It's why I keep making this show every week. So if you're enjoying this, if you want to help out, just tell a friend about this show. Somebody who loves music, who might enjoy what we're doing over here. Or, you know, send out a tweet. Give us a retweet, a share, anything like that, all builds into making this a better show for everybody. It's great to see everybody getting involved, and it's always great to talk to you guys. On that note, you can always hit me up. I am available. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address, or you can hit me on social media at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod. So, for this conversation with Paul Oakenfold, which still sounds crazy to me to say, I mean, this was a conversation like no other. I met him in his unbelievably nice house out in Los Angeles. It was a scorching hot day, over 100 degrees easily, probably 105. We actually rolled up to the house at exactly the same time. He was out. He hopped out of his car. He was wearing basically a full suit minus the jacket. So like nice long pants, like a ruffled shirt with a vest over it. He looked incredible, and all I could think is how hot he must have been, and somehow it didn't show at all. Consummate rock star. Went into the house and started talking, and look, he's had a career of 30 plus years in the game. We could have talked for 10 hours and I wouldn't have been able to cover everything I wanted to cover. And with a guy like him, he has probably done more interviews in his career than anyone I've ever talked to. So basically, every sentence he would say, in my head, I would be thinking, oh man, that sounds awesome. I want to know more about that. And I wanted him to talk about what he was really feeling at the time, what he was excited about. We brought up some old memories that I don't think he had talked about in a long time. We had a blast. And the whole time he was running around the room, pulling records off the walls, perching on the edge of the couch, jumping up, coming back. The whole thing was a whirlwind, and the stories are just insane. This is a man who toured with U2 playing to 60,000 people a night at stadiums around the world before most people even knew what a DJ was. He's produced for Madonna, and we talk about how he's partially responsible for creating club culture as we know it today. I mean, the history just goes as deep as you want to get. It's wild. He's been named one of the most influential DJs of all time, and now he's set his sights on continuing to challenge himself, finding even new barriers to break. He's doing some crazy shit right now. He DJ'd on Mount Everest. I know that sounds insane, but he did it, and no one else has done that. He's working on doing a show at Stonehenge. I don't even know, man. When you get to the level where that's your next goal, you must have had a pretty interesting life. So check it out. I'm not even going to say anymore. We're going to jump right in. Get ready for a wild ride. This is me and Paul Oakenfold back to back. Let's go. That's actually a perfect way to start. You just handed me
The Wonderful World of Perfecto, which is a comic. I was approached last year to see if I was interested in doing a comic, which I was.
Are you a comic book fan?
Well, I've been to Comic-Con. I've been to a few different comic events where I've played at. Growing up as a kid, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, the obvious choices.
Sure. I had mountains of them.
Yeah, I think we've all gone through that. And then as you grow older, you kind of leave the comics. And as you can see, my wall of vinyl took over. Anyway, I was approached to do it. It was the comics, a narrative on what I've been up to over the last 20-odd years. It ends with me DJing on Mount Everest. The illustrations are done in 4 different parts. And it's downloadable music, so it's doing pretty well.
Wow, so did you actually compose music for it?
Yeah. There's music at the back that you can sit down, read the comic and listen to.
Amazing. And is it historical, like more or less nonfiction?
Yeah.
It's kind of retelling?
Realistically, it's what I've got up to over my 25 years, I believe.
It's pretty amazing, man. I can't think of, I'm trying to think of any other reference for somebody doing something like this.
No, I don't think anyone's done anything. Or at least that's what I was told.
Yeah. The only thing I can come up with is, say, turntablists like Kid Koala or, those kind of guys. They were cartoon guys. I think they did some animation stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But is this out?
Yes, it's out. So it's available at, comic stores, various outlets and online.
I love it, man, going into all areas of culture. I wanted to start off by telling a story that I'm almost certain you will not remember, but has kind of stuck with me. It's the one and only time that you and I have met. It was on a plane flying from Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia, a couple of years ago. And briefly, I'll just tell this story because I love it so much. Basically, we were both sitting there the entire flight. We get to Sydney. Everybody stands up, long flight, 15 hours. We're all tired. And I saw you. We were actually more or less seated across the aisle from each other. And I just said, "Excuse me, are you Paul Oakenfold?" And, you very understandably just looked like you wanted to get off the plane and, go about whatever you were doing. But you were very nice and you said hi. And I explained that I was there for my first ever tour of Australia. And once I said that, it was almost like a switch flipped, and you started giving me advice in a very kind, sort of almost fatherly way about, you asked me the routing of the tour and told me, it would have been better if you had routed it this way, you would have gotten more rest. And I just thought it was a very cool moment. I felt like, you didn't have to take the time to talk to me about my career or anything like that. And it was just a cool thing. It's a story I tell from time to time.
Thank you.
Do you remember that at all? Yeah. I didn't think so. Yeah.
I mean, you summed it up in the beginning after 15 hours of being on a plane. There's not much you can remember because you're so tired.
Oh, yeah. No.
So forgive me. I don't remember.
I would not expect you to.
I hope your tour went well. Did it go well?
It went fantastic. I had a
Good
blast.
for you.
I had a blast. Then I was reading when I knew I was coming to talk to you. I was doing some reading, and you do, or at least you were involved with some kind of mentorship for other artists. Is that right?
Yeah, I had a DJ camp in Los Angeles for 2 years, actually. Every season, we would recruit up to 50 wannabe DJ producers working the industry, partnered up with the Los Angeles Recording Academy down the road in Hollywood, and it was good. It was good. We over a course of a few days, I brought in some colleagues, friends of mine who work on the record company side, on the social media side. Even my lawyer came and gave a speech just so the next generation or the current generation who want to get into the industry are totally aware of how it works and the pitfalls and what to look out for.
Sure. So it was, very practically focused.
For sure. I mean, look, I think that there's many elements to a modern DJ now. And it's good to understand every aspect of it and know what's important and what's not. So the idea was pretty much there for everyone to take in as much as they wanted, with experts giving talks over a period of a few days.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was coming to talk to you, I was thinking about sort of the totality of your career. And I mean, from when you started to now, even the definition of what a DJ is and what a DJ does has totally morphed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you started, so you were, to take it all the way back, born in the UK. What part of the UK?
I was born in London, in East London. Into a working class family, but DJing, it's there. You can see it. Of course, your viewer can't. But
the wall of records we're looking at.
I've got about 30,000 records, and the true art of DJing, telling a story through music, taking people on a journey, playing longer sets. The pure enjoyment and excitement of going to record stores and finding these unique records that lie behind me is so exciting. And where we are now, that's all gone. Everything I've described virtually no longer.
Right.
No longer do you need or to even know when it comes to be a modern DJ.
Even the excitement of just going to a physical store.
Well,
right?
you don't need to do that now because you Shazam everything that I'm playing.
Right.
You just find it online and you've got my set.
Sure.
And where's the excitement in that? But anyway, point being, it's important, and I do share this with people, to embrace change, because change is around us every day. If you don't embrace change, you will get left behind. You don't have to always like change.
Yeah.
But be aware of it and understand it. And what I mean by that, we went from vinyl, we then went to CDs, and we're now on a laptop or a USB stick. You can see those Denon multimedia players, which is a fine piece of work.
Do you prefer those over the?
I think Denim. Look, do you prefer an Aston Martin over a Ferrari? I mean, both Pioneer and Denim are two leaders in the industry. Both their setups are wonderful, and I use both. But yeah, that's where we are now. So me carrying around 2 boxes of those records and playing for 3 hours is far and few apart. Now it's a USB stick and away we go.
Right, yeah. And another thing I always talk to people about on this show too is that, the music is a young person's game. Music, what's popular, what's happening, what's being innovative is all determined by youth, right? And so as we grow older, as we all do, I think it's very dangerous to get stuck in kind of one mode of thinking or stuck on one sound or anything like that, even if it's something you love, just because, everything else keeps moving. So if we're all here because we love music and we want to stay involved with it, I completely agree. It's a fact that you have to evolve with it. Starting off for you, was it... was that excitement you were talking about finding those new records, hearing a song, not knowing what it was that a big driver for you?
It's when you're, and I'm recalling some of those great times actually, because you just pushed a button. So I was studying I'm a fully qualified chef, so I would work as a chef all week. And I always recall Friday afternoons, I used to do what you call split shifts. And what that means is I start work at 10, finish at 3, I have 3 till 5 off, and I start again at 5, and I end at 11 at night. That was, working as a chef was really long hours. But on a Friday between 2 and 5, there was a record store just around the corner from where I was working. So at the end of the month, I used to go to the record store, and the old school, you'd stand in a record store, the guy behind the counter would pull out a new record that had come out in the last few weeks. He would play it, and then everyone in the store, and there'd be about 10, 15 people, he plays it, and you put your hand up. And then he would get a copy of that record and put it in your bin, and you each had a bin. And when you wanted to leave the store, you would go to the front and you say, right, how much are you? And I would always spend over my salary.
Of course.
And I'd never have enough money to pay my rent. And it was one of those stories. And I was like, oh man, what am I doing? Where am I going? I'm always broke.
How is this possible?
And I wasn't a DJ then. I was a bedroom DJ that was just starting. But I love those moments. I look back at them with a fond memory now and think that was the birth of my musical career. I grew up playing instruments and was around music, but to then stand on my own 2 feet and go, okay, well now I left my parents' house and got rent to pay and I want to play music, but I've got to maintain a job to live.
Right. And how do you balance all of that? And is it realistic? I had a very similar story. I was always musical as a kid. Played instruments, was in bands, all of that, but it never just took me over until I started buying records the same way.
There you go.
When did you start thinking that music could be a career, could be something that paid your rent? Was there any kind of revelation or moment, or was it just something
It was quietly creeping up on me. I denied the whole DJ experience for many years. I was like, what
even was your conception of a DJ at that time?
Well, there really wasn't. I mean, there was no. We paved the way. We created that moment.
Yeah.
30 years ago. Look, there was DJs before us, of course. There was electronic music before us, of course. But 30 years ago, you would go to a nightclub and we would stand at the bar having a beer. The girls would be dancing around their handbags. The DJ's over in the corner and no one's really paying attention. Well, all that changed when myself and a few others came back from Ibiza.
Right.
Everyone started to all dance and look at the DJ. Everyone took notice of all the music he was playing. And that was the birth of club culture as we know it today. The only difference is today that everyone's standing there looking at the DJ, everyone's dancing, everyone's into the music, but they have a phone in their hands.
Right.
And that's the only difference.
When you started out all of this, that trip to Ibiza, which is, I'm sure you're sick of talking about at this point, but it's kind of become dance music legend, to the point where it is now. DJs are rock stars, superstars. Is that, do you think it's all been a good thing? Do you like being the focus of that attention? Was that sort of the goal?
No, that was not the goal. And who could have ever thought that we would, that I would be a working class English kid from East London, would be here in Hollywood with all these movie posters of movies I've worked on. And I mean, I'm very, very fortunate and lucky. But saying that, I've worked incredibly hard. My parents, one thing my father insisted it was a good work ethic. You can't get anywhere unless you work really hard.
Yeah.
Unless you're become the best at whatever you choose in life, become the best at it, and things will change. And you should reap the rewards, whatever those rewards are. And for me, I loved playing music. I love making music, and I love playing music. And I'm very fortunate that I found a job that I love doing. And I always say to anyone, whatever you do, find something that you love doing, and it doesn't feel like a job. It just feels like you're a very fortunate person in a wonderful moment.
Absolutely. No, I think I talk about this a lot, actually, that for any of us in the music industry, especially DJs and producers, I mean, the real victory is that we're still here doing it, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And there is no shortcuts, and don't think there are. Because if you want to be around, if you want longevity, if you want to be constantly on the cutting edge of whatever job you choose, you have to work really hard at it.
Yes.
It doesn't just come.
Yeah. Hard work is the boring but constant answer for anytime anyone asks me.
And
advice.
that's the point to what you just said. If you find the job that you absolutely love, it ain't boring.
Right.
So there's not one moment of music that I am ever bored with.
And do you think, you said coming back from Ibiza, it was the start of this club culture moment.
Club culture as we know it today.
Right. Were you just in the right place at the right time, combined with being a hard worker?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, I wouldn't take any credit other than right time, right place, with a couple of colleagues, with a great club promoter, and we all had the same spirit. We were all young, and I never in a million years thought I would see the world through a box of records. I never thought that I would do half the things I did. They weren't on the radar because they'd never ever been done.
Right, there was no roadmap.
Well, to open for U2 or produce Madonna or play it on base camp Mount Everest or the Great Wall of China, there was nothing. No one had done those things, so you don't even imagine them.
Of course.
But you do. You live for the moment. So we're four young guys who just want to have a great time and share music. And
yeah, I think that's the key, right?
That's all it was. And that could be you, the listener. You can go away and do whatever you want to do and make it happen. We weren't making money.
Right.
We were doing it, because it was just amazing, and then because it was so good, then it attracts money because then a lot more people come, and then we ended up with 1,500 people in a club on a Monday night, and then we start making money. Then you get asked to remix people's records, and doors open.
Sure. And in this time, had you already started producing music as well?
I was producing my own music, but it wasn't very good. My father was a musician. I grew up around music, so it was there, and you try it out, and it was a lot of live musicians.
Yeah, what did producing a track look like in the 80s?
Yeah, well, I wasn't very good at it. I didn't really understand. First of all, there was no home studios. You couldn't afford a home studio. So I would go to my friend's house. Say that sounds strange. There was no home studios. There were if you had money.
Sure, yeah.
Put it that way, right?
Really nice house.
Yeah, so my friend was in a band, a British pop band called Mud. And they had a big hit. They sold like millions and millions of records. So he had, in his garage, he had a home studio. It was like a 16-track home studio. So we would go there and do demos. And that's and I learned from Rob Davis, Steve Osborne. I mean, these are great producers, songwriters. Again, I think that through me playing and DJing, it just attracts people, and then suddenly you meet these people and you're like, well, let's go in the studio, and yeah, we do.
Sure.
And then you suddenly make a track that does well, and then a record company signs it, and then you're down there. And then suddenly someone says, well, I like your song, can you remix you too? And then next minute you're on tour with the biggest band in the world, and it just rolls and rolls.
I mean, that just goes back to what you were saying a second ago, is that, it's just about the love and the intention of it and not about trying to achieve any particular goal.
No, I mean, I didn't, how can you ever think you're going to set out to tour with Lenny Kravitz or the Red Hot Chili Peppers? They ask you.
Right.
It's not like you put your hand up and go, hey, I'm over here.
Right.
I'm ready when you are. So,
yeah, and they're like, oh, great, we were waiting.
Yeah, we've been waiting for you. Or when I got the call to remix Justin Timberlake, and I was like, man, I've always really liked what he does. I'd love to do that. Or Snoop Dogg. You get asked because of where you are and what's going on.
Right.
And you got to make that happen yourself.
Right. You have to, demonstrate your value, more or less.
Yep.
And so let's talk about how you put those building blocks together, because I want to get to all of these amazing things that you're mentioning. But for a while in the 80s, I think before, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think before the Ibiza times, you were also living in New York for a short period of time.
Yeah, I was on a hustle.
Like record label stuff out there?
Yeah, I was going to record companies. I created a job, strangely enough. I was very well connected in the UK with all the record companies, and the record companies would, at that time, they would go to the record stores, hear all the new imports and sign them. So when I was in New York, I thought, well, hang on, what happens if I went to all the record companies and got the promos 5 weeks before they was in the stores, and then sent them to the record companies, and if they signed them, I would get a fee. So I created that job. So I would go, I out of that, I started to work for Profile Records, which was the home of Run DMC.
Sure, sort of as an A&R type position.
Head of A&R for Profile UK. And then I was hired to do promotion for Def Jam recording. So I was working with LL Cool J, Beastie Boys, Public Enemy. So I was right in the thick of it.
Wow. And I can only imagine, early 80s, I was being born in Minnesota. And so, I wasn't in New York at that time. But my impression of it is that it must have been such a vibrant time to be in the city, with the end of disco, the start of hip hop. I think about a certain level of grit to the city that, maybe is now only just told in stories.
Yeah.
Did you experience all of that?
Yeah. I mean, I was an English kid in New York, and I would go up to the Bronx and watch Grandmaster Flash and Red Alert, DJ Chuck Chill Out, then Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, Jazzy J. I was right in the middle of it all. Fab Five Freddy, Rocksteady Crew, New York City Breakers, the Roxy, Paradise Garage with Larry Levan. I was just loving it, every minute of it. It was such a great time to be in New York City. Again, it was just right time, right place.
Yeah, and you were still buying some records, not really.
Yeah, I mean, you could find records there that, I found a lot of those stuff, South Soul label, Prelude.
Oh, yeah. Hanging on the wall here.
I can pull out some. Yeah, we're looking at my wall of records. Sorry about that.
No, that's just so amazing to think about. I think very few people, because, dance music, electronic music, and hip-hop as well are young art forms in the grand scheme of things.
Yep.
And to have been there from their inception, I think that's sort of a rare viewpoint.
Yeah.
It's
I've just seen
you looking for one in particular?
Yeah, no, I've just seen a record that, I just have actually. I've seen the bootleg version of Madonna at Rose Bowl on vinyl in the corner there.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's
it's her
pretty
birthday
amazing.
soon, actually.
Oh, really?
Madonna's birthday, so I think I'll take a picture of that and say happy birthday, Madonna.
Yeah.
Boom! Well done. Good idea.
Hey, I'm here to help.
Yeah,
man.
yeah, here to help. See that? Hey, listener, he's helping me out.
I mean, it's just crazy to me to think about a time when people would press bootlegs to vinyl.
Vinyl,
man.
I've never played it. I just framed it because I think it's a special record.
Yeah, well, it's probably not a lot of those out there either.
Nah.
Yeah. So, New York, Ibiza, being around at the start of all of these scenes, and then at what point do you sort of move from being, behind the scenes, A&Ring, finding records, to more of a, was it the residencies in Ibiza basically that got you more seasoned as a performer?
Yeah, I mean, the residencies, the whole idea behind my residencies came out of New York City when I went to Paradise Garage, and watched Larry Levan, one of the true greatest DJs.
A legend.
Ever. And my residencies, the whole expression of being there every week, playing, breaking music, taking people on journeys, playing long sets, really came out of that moment. So my first residency was when Ministry of Sound opened in London. So that was a year. Moved to Cream, moved to Cream, England, 2 years. Then I did 2 residencies in Ibiza for Perfecto at Pasha and Cream at Amnesia.
And then early 90s, right?
Yeah, and then I had one more residency in the new big club that opened in London called Home. And then I was like, you know what, I just want to get back on travel. So I did. And then in 2008, I started this residency in Las Vegas where I played every Saturday for nearly 3 years.
I remember that, actually.
And it was a lot. It was really weird because there was such a wave of negativity from the industry. I could never understand.
About
they were
you taking the residency?
Yeah, because it's like Vegas is where you go when you're old and you die, and and it's when you come to the end of your career and all this bullshit. And I'm like,
well,
no, it's not.
Look at Vegas now, right?
Yeah, I mean now it's easy to say, but back in 2008. And I thought, you know what? I think people who are saying this don't understand how Vegas is now and how it works. In 2008, you could sense change. A lot of young people going there, wanting to go out. Gambling was on a decline, all looking for things. And I was like, well, let's do a big super club like we did in England in Vegas. And it would be a no-brainer. Everyone would come in and fly into Vegas and for the weekends and party and hang out. And
that level of theater and pageantry and just kind of...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we did it. And it was hugely successful, so much so now that it's the norm in Las Vegas.
Right. And it's interesting you say that. I always think of the scene I come from. DJ AM was sort of the guy who a lot of us said, "Oh, he broke Vegas open for a lot of us,"
and he did.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he was.
But you were there too, which is an interesting thing.
We were there. We were. So I was resident of Palm. So the first year was just myself on a Saturday, and then we were looking. Because I was involved also behind the scenes, and then we were looking. Well, let's do what we're doing on a Saturday's electronic music. Let's do it on a Friday. So we looked at who we could bring in, and there was 2 DJs that we were talking to, and we ended up with Adam, DJ AM, and my second year, which was his first year, was colossal. I mean, we were having 3,000-4,000 on a Friday, 4,000-5,000 on a Saturday.
Wow.
And of course, suddenly the model was there for the other casinos to go, hang on.
Yeah.
And then Hayes started, then the Win, then blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Vegas is pretty good at sniffing out a money opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, they could see the amount of, because it's all about keeping people on the property spending money.
Mm.
So they sensed that was the change, rather than just gambling, and and it was great. And Adam did a wonderful job, and it was an amazing DJ, incredible skills and talent, shame, real shame what happened with Adam.
It is. I mean, I never knew him very well, almost not at all. And I only had really 1 or 2 experiences DJing with him, but I'll never forget. And I've told this story on the show before, but it was right around that era, maybe 2008, 2009. And we were doing Lollapalooza. And when Lollapalooza's over, they do a staff after party on the grounds.
Do they?
Yeah, they shut the whole thing down, but you kind of just party in the field with 50, 100 people, and it's really fun.
You played with him?
Well, not song for song, but we both played that night, and I almost didn't want to play because he was so good, and he, he played, I think 3.5 hours, 4 hours for, 50 people. And it was what you were talking about originally. You could just see the love of it just pouring out of him, It didn't matter to him what the situation was. It just mattered how much he loved doing it. Yeah. And, he was playing Suicidal Tendencies and old punk records and, just everything. It was one of those things. I mean, nobody wanted to go on when he was done. You're
on. You're next.
Yeah, no. It's I mean, I don't think people liked following him in general, but man, that
you see the way you follow a great DJ. Let me explain how you do it,
please.
Well, first of all, you acknowledge he's a great DJ. So when he finishes his moment, it goes to silence. You acknowledge by showing your respect, and whether you clap him or you're on the mic with the audience, and then you just leave it. Silence, if you can control silence, is very, very powerful, because the moment you turn the music off, everyone in the room looks to you.
Yeah.
So then you just let it settle, and you don't try and interpret what he's doing. You don't try and copy what he's up to. You do what you want to do, and you're different. And some people will prefer you to Adam,
Sure.
But you focus on you. Never focus on anyone else. Become the best at what you do. And that's why you got Frankie Knuckles, one of the greatest house DJs. AM, one of the greatest mashup DJs. Yeah. Hernan Catana, one of the best progressive, greatest DJs in the world, if you've ever heard him spin, from Argentina. Larry Levan, Danny Teneglia. There's some fantastic players out there. But and if you notice, they're all leaders. They don't copy. Don't copy.
Right. And I think
that's how you follow.
Absolutely. There's more of that fatherly advice. I love it.
That's where 90% of DJs go wrong, because they copy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think especially in the modern era, we're seeing that more and more. these sort of micro genres popping up at a really fast rate. Everybody makes the same song over and over. They die, within a span of a couple months. It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, excuse me, for your listener, I'm multitasking.
No, I love this. This is great.
I'm just trying, because I've got so much to do.
Yeah.
So forgive me, but...
Not at all,
listener,
please.
I'm still here. But yeah, to your point, some of these great names we're talking about, it's wonderful to shed light on some of these names, because maybe the listener haven't heard them play or not even aware of their names, but do check them out, because these are true legends and pioneers of our culture, and well worth looking into.
Yeah, do you think that in 2018 the roots of dance music are getting lost to a certain extent? With EDM, quote unquote, blowing up in the States the way it has and becoming, almost a separate culture with people who maybe weren't there for the same reasons at the beginning.
I totally agree that we have a duty. I think the older DJs have a duty to help, support, encourage, be there, share your knowledge with the next generation, because we do have that, like any job, you've got that experience, then that's what you're there for, to help the next generation, but also you're there to teach, and to let them know, about some of these great names that we're discussing, and how by going away and listening to a Frankie Knuckles set or a DJ Harvey set, how they structure it, how they put it together, why was it different, what were they doing that was so special that leaves these names still alive with us after some of them have passed.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and a good way to think about it is to think about why we talk about certain people and why we don't talk about other people who were there at the same time.
Correct.
And what did they do to stand out? That's a great twist on it. I really like that. For you at this point, in 2018, do you see yourself fitting into any particular scene? Do you, feel an allegiance? There was a certain point where you were sort of the paragon of trance music in the 90s. And there was a time when you were working with pop artists. There was a time when you've remixed everybody under the sun at this point. Do you feel like you're carrying a torch or responsible for a scene?
No, I feel. Look, and again, we touched on this earlier on. You evolve as an artist in terms of what I want to do now. I'm up for the challenge more so than the gig. And what I mean by that is that every year you're dictated. A professional DJ is dictated by certain events that happen that you attend in terms of playing. Miami in March, then in the summer you have all the big festivals. You're in Europe, Tomorrowland's, EDC, ADE in October. So it's kind of mapped out. And every year you're a hamster on this wheel, just going round and round and round and round. And it's a great ride.
It's a good wheel, yeah.
But you get to a point where you want more, and you want to jump off that wheel, and you want to challenge yourself. And what I mean by that is going out the box. Is setting up unique events like the Mount Everest show that we raised $75,000 for children and music. Took us 2 years.
Yeah, that must have been a headache to set up.
Yeah, and we didn't know if we could pull it off because no one had tested the equipment at 17,000 feet. Playing at the Great Wall of China. The next one I'm doing is Stonehenge, which is 4,500 years old, and it's a sacred site in September. So these are challenges
is that
in terms of shows.
You in it?
That's what inspires me. In terms of music, my next moment is can I merge electronic music with orchestral music? So all these in my room for the listener, I've got film posters of all these movies that I've worked on in some shape or form. So the idea now is for me to do an album that involves and working with some of the great composers, Craig Armstrong, Harry Grenfell Williams, these kind of guys who've got the experience and knowledge, and taking great pop singers or great singers in general, some you'll know, some you won't, CeeLo, Ryan Tedder, Baby Eve, names like this, and merging electronic music with these elements. That's very difficult and that's a challenge. So that inspires me. So that's why I'm not on the wheel no more. And I still, of course, enjoy playing shows and still do those big festivals.
Sure.
Ultra, EDC, Creamfields, Tomorrowlands. But these other things that now I'll be honest, I'm coming towards the end of my career. So I'd like to, before I hang the headphones up, try some unique things because I'm in a position to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably what got you into that position in the first place, right? Is we were talking before about how there was kind of no blueprint for what you were doing at the time. You know, I was thinking about, you mentioned the U2 tour that you did. And obviously there was no precedent for a DJ doing that. But even before that, you remixed them, right?
Yeah, that's how I got asked to tour with them. So they approached me to do a remix. I did a remix called Even Better Than the Real Thing. And my version became a bigger hit than their version.
It was even better than the real thing.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So they asked me to then go on and remix a bunch of other stuff, which I did. And then they asked me if I'd tour with them on their world tour, which was amazing, you know. And I was under no illusion that the 60, 70,000 people that were turning up every show were there to see me.
Well, that's my question. What did you even do for those performances?
I shit myself.
I would have too.
No, I really started to analyze it, and joking aside, I really studied what was it all about. What am I going to do? You know, and as I said, you know, again, being honest, I know no one's there to see me. Of course not. I know that, but my job was to warm the crowd up for the main act. So then I was like, well, okay, I'm not going to be able to play dance music because it's a rock and roll crowd. But what I will do is I'll do my own versions of rock records. So I was remixing Rolling Stones, In Excess, Cure, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I was already being asked by record companies to remix these kind of bands because I'd had a hit with U2. I'd had a Produce Happy Monday, Stone Roses. So the record company was having pop success with my version.
Right.
So I would play my interpretations of these songs that people knew and drop some of the old Led Zeppelin in there and some moments from old rock records that you would know, a bit of Beatles, just in there to warm the crowd up so they would be excited to see the main act. And that approach worked really well. And once we started to go around the world, let's say we were in Germany, I would go online, I'd find out, usually through the record company, what was the biggest rock record in Germany? And I'd drop that record in the mix, and of course the crowd would go mad because they all know it. But I wouldn't play that record in England because no one would know it. So there was a lot that went into setting up the show, the preparation, and the more you're prepared, anything you do in life, the more you're prepared before you do it, the better the result.
But it's funny, I think even that set a precedent. I have a friend who was helping Skrillex out a year or two ago when he was opening up for Guns N' Roses, and he was describing a very similar kind of mindset. You know, they, I think, met up a week beforehand, sat down, said, what are the big rock songs? How can we kind of flip them in our way? And it's so amazing to hear you talk about, doing that 20 years before. It's funny, sort of the paths we walk that other people then later walk that you just never think about.
I hope they do, because isn't that the idea, to help and give back? And if I have that knowledge and it worked out and it was a successful tour, then that knowledge is there to be shared. I'm not hiding this and sweeping it all under the carpet. I would hope if someone had done something before me, that I could call them and say, well, I'm now doing something similar. Any advice? I mean, what do you reckon? When I was touring with Madonna, it was completely different music, of course, but the same outlook. It was like, study her demographic, find out what those big pop records were in the 80s, when she started in the 90s, and up to the early 2000s, and drop those in. But because she was more in the dance world, you could start playing more of you. You could express your character, meaning some of the big club records that I played, that's what I would do in the set, and then sprinkle moments of her history around my set.
Right. And it's, looking back, what could be more perfect than to get a great DJ to fill that space? Because that's what, as DJs, we love to do, is connect the dots between sounds.
Sure.
And it makes me think about another way you sort of set a precedent. I think about the Glastonbury Festival, when you were on the main stage there, which I believe was the first DJ to ever perform on that stage, right?
Yeah, again, if you play to your strengths as a DJ and you're playing these big festivals with 60, 70,000 in front of you, just join the dots. Do your research, know where you're going, know where and the set is not prearranged. I've just got a wide section of stuff that I can play, and when I play, and certain moments in key, if you drop a certain record, you'll get the response.
Sure. I think of it, it's sort of like an improv theater almost. You know how you're going to start probably. You'll hit some marks somewhere in there. You're not sure exactly how you'll get there. Maybe you have an idea of how it'll all wrap up. But, kind of the journey is the fun part.
Yeah, just to let you know, we've got to end it soon.
Oh, okay. And I'll wrap up. I'm just having fun running down all these these moments, man. Okay, one last random moment, and then I'll stop, just because I wanted to go to this tour, and I was never able to, so I want to hear what it was like. Was the Area tour that you
Area
did.
1.
Yeah, which was early 2000s, and for the listeners who may not know, it was you, Moby, Carl Cox, Outkast, The Roots, Incubus, and I still remember the flyer.
New Order and Nelly Furtado.
What a fucking crazy lineup, man.
What a lineup.
Yeah.
And Moby put that together, Moby's idea, and Moby had that vision to put an incredible lineup together. And looking back at it, it was successful. In a lot of ways, fantastic lineup of different genres of music, great production, wonderful setup, a great bus tour through America, but maybe a little too early for the consumer. And what I mean by that is, in Europe, people were already aware of these kind of tours and festivals, which were multi-staged and different kinds of artists. In America, they weren't. You go to a rock festival or a hip hop festival. There was, here we were all together in one. Yeah. And so Area 2, the second year didn't work for them, and then they stopped it. I think if you'd start it now,
I was going to say, now you're almost seeing that blueprint being followed.
Look at Coachella.
Coachella, and I think it's commonplace now to see, say, Ray Shremmerd headlining next to Diplo or something like that. I guess to just wrap it all up, one sort of burning question for me, and I wanted to take this opportunity because you've had such a long career doing this now, and this is something I think anybody in the music industry struggles at a certain point. But for you, were there any points in your career where you felt like you lost your way? Or any, I'm curious about the low moments or the times where you felt like maybe this isn't going to work out, or maybe this is the end, my run is done.
No, yes. Yes. Of course, you have moments where you doubt yourself. Look, I'll give you a perfect example. So for many, many years, the leader under the umbrella of electronic music, the leading sound was trance. Trance was massive.
Yeah.
We were the sound of the main stage, right? And then it started the production that was coming out started to get cheesier and cheesier, and it became a format, and I lost interest in that sound because it was just the same old crap. And it showed, because it suddenly, in America, so-called EDM reared its head, and trance went from being the main sound to being pushed over to the side. And then you had the explosion of EDM, then you had the re-explosion of house music, so it pushed trance even further to the side, and then techno in Europe is huge.
Yeah,
so now we've gone from main stage to all the way down on the right hand side on this little stage, and we're down there.
Yeah.
And then you start to reevaluate and think, well, is this the end of my sound? And what do I want to do? Do I want to quickly scramble over to that sound that's being played on the main stage and be one of those DJs that jump ship and now, or do I stick to my beliefs? Do I be honest with myself and go, okay, well now I'm gonna do what I'm great at doing, and that's okay. You can't be that number one person forever.
Right.
I mean, especially in the DJ world, when you're voted number one DJ in the world, there's only one way to go, and that's down.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's so stressful because you're there for a few years and then you're doing everything in your power, which is just naturally people do, to stay at number one.
Right, and I'm sure you start second guessing yourself and analyzing every decision.
Your team, your management, they do, but you've got to. And it's not easy to do, but you have to come to terms and go, you know what, it's okay. I'm all right. I can, this is what I do, and I'm good at doing it. And it's fine that people want to hear EDM, or they want to hear this. The umbrella's big enough, and we can all live under it, and it is what it is. So those moments are difficult to deal with when suddenly you're the main act on the main stage for many, many years, and suddenly you're pushed to the right and you're 4 stages down, and you're like, well, what just happened? But that's called what's life.
Well, this has been amazing. I have so many more questions, but I hope we can come back in a year, do a part 2.
Of course you can. Thank you, and good luck with Australia.
All right, that's the show. Shout out to Paul Oakenfold. Amazing conversation. For everybody out there who's listening, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Hopefully we will come back and do a part 2 sometime. I'd really like that. I hope everybody out there has a great rest of your week. My name is Willy Joy. You can always keep up with me. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address, or you can hit me up at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod on all social media. A couple weeks ago, we were kind of scrambling trying to find a good calendar for the fall, a good schedule of guests. And in the last couple weeks, man, we really locked it down. Some crazy guests coming up, some more curveballs, people you might not be expecting. Keep your eyes peeled, keep it locked. For Back to Back Radio, I hope you have a great week. Take care of each other. This is Willy Joy. Peace.